Chapter 1. Another new neighbor. Minho received a call at 11 p.m. He was in his study, supposedly working, but actually staring at financial reports he wasn't absorbing when his head of security rang. "Sir, the Seoul Metropolitan Police just called. They found Mrs. Jung." Minho was out of his chair instantly. "What? Where is she?" "She's alive. Shaken up but alive. They're taking her to Asin Medical Center. I thought you'd want to know immediately. I'm on my way." He grabbed his jacket and headed for the door, only to find Laura standing in the hallway in her robe. "I heard," she said quietly. "Go. Make sure she's okay." Their eyes met. It was the most she'd said to him in days. "Thank you," he said softly. She nodded and returned to the bedroom, closing the door gently behind her. The hospital was quiet at this hour. Minho navigated the sterile hallways with practiced ease, his security team trailing behind at a discreet distance. Mrs. Jung was in a private room, sitting up in bed. She looked small, fragile, nothing like the confident, put-together woman who'd run his office for years. Her hair was disheveled, her face was pale, and her eyes held a fear that made Minho's chest tighten. "Mrs. Jung," he said softly as he entered. "Thank God you're safe." She looked up at him, and for a moment, he saw such raw emotion in her face, relief, fear, guilt, gratitude, that he almost stepped back. "Mr. Kong," she whispered. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for—" "No." He moved to the chair beside her bed, sitting down so they were eye level. "You have nothing to apologize for. Whatever happened, none of it was your fault." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "You don't understand. Then help me understand." His voice was gentle but firm. "The police said you were held against your will. That you were found tied up in a basement. Mrs. Jung, who did this to you?" Her mouth opened, then closed, then she looked away. "Minji." He used her given name, something he rarely did, trying to convey his concern. "Please. I can't help you if you don't tell me what happened. Who took you? And why?" I don't know," she finally said, the lie tasted bitter on her tongue. "I couldn't see their faces. They kept me blindfolded. But you must have heard something. A name, a reason." "I don't know." Her voice broke. "I don't know anything. I just want to see my daughter." "Please, Mr. Kong. Can you make sure my daughter is safe?" Minho studied her carefully. He'd worked with this woman for 8 years. He knew when she was lying. He'd learned to read every micro-expression and every tell. She was terrified. But not of him. Of whoever had taken her. "Your daughter is safe," he said quietly. "I've already had my security team check on her. She's at her university dorm, completely safe. I can have her brought here if you'd like." Mrs. Young's relief was palpable. "Thank you. Thank you so much. Minji." He leaned forward slightly. "I need you to be honest with me. Are you lying to protect yourself? Or are you lying to protect someone else?" Her hands trembled in her lap. "Because if someone threatened you," Minho continued, his voice taking on an edge, "if someone is making you stay silent by threatening you or your daughter, I need to know. I can protect you. I can keep both of you safe. But only if you tell me the truth." For a long moment, Mrs. Jung looked at him. At the man who'd been a good employer, who'd been generous and fair and kind. The man who was nothing like the monster Kim had described. But then she thought of her daughter. Thought of Kim's cold eyes and colder promise. "One word from me, and she's dead." "I don't know anything," she said again, more firmly this time. "I'm sorry, Mr. Kong. I truly am. But I really don't know anything about the people that kidnapped me." Minho sat back, his jaw tight with frustration. He knew she was lying. He knew someone had gotten to her, threatened her, and made her too terrified to speak. But without proof, without her testimony, his hands were tied. "All right," he said finally. "Get some rest. I'll have security posted outside your room and at your daughter's dorm. No one will hurt either of you." "Thank you, Mr. Kong." He stood to leave, then paused at the door. "Minji? Whoever did this to you, whoever scared you into silence, they won't win. I promise you that." He left before she could respond. Outside in the hallway, his head of security was waiting. "Sir, I want every piece of security footage from the building where they found her analyzed, Minho said, his voice cold and controlled. I want to know who rented that space, who had access, every person who went in or out in the last 2 weeks. And I want a full background check on young Nana, where she worked before, who her references were, every detail of her life. Something about all of this is wrong. Yes, sir. And double the security on Mrs. Jung and her daughter. 24/7. No one gets near them without my approval. Understood. Minho walked through the hospital corridors, his mind racing. Someone had orchestrated all of this. The resignation letter. Nana's timely arrival. The accident. Mrs. Jung's kidnapping. It was too coordinated to be a coincidence. Someone was targeting him. Minho pulled out his phone and made a call to his most trusted spy. His name is Shadow, the man who handled the darker aspects of his business. I need you to find everything you can on Kim Park, he said. And I mean everything. Where he came from, his real identity, his connections. He's not who he says he is, and I need to know who he really is. I'll get started immediately, boss. Minho hung up and stood in the quiet hospital hallway, looking out at the Seoul night through a nearby window. Someone had declared war on him. And Minho Kang had never lost a war. Whoever Kim Park really was, whatever he wanted, he'd made a critical mistake. He'd threatened Minho's family. And that was unforgivable. The game had changed. Now it was personal. Welcome back, beautiful souls. Welcome back to Afro-Korean Diaries. If you're new here, welcome to the family. And if you're returning, thank you for coming back. Your support means absolutely everything to me. We're diving into part 3 of The Kiss That Changed Everything, and oh my goodness, you are not ready for what's about to happen. If you thought part 2 was intense, part 3 is going to blow your mind. But before we jump in, I need you to do me 3 quick favors. 1. Subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an upload. 2. Smash that like button if you're enjoying this story. It helps the algorithm share our story with more people. 3. Comment below. Tell me where you are watching from. What do you think is going to happen? Are you Team Laura or Team Minho? Drop your predictions. Your comments fuel my creativity and help me know you're loving this journey with me. Alright fam, buckle up. Part 3 is about to get crazy. Let's go. When Minho returned home, the apartment was dark except for a single lamp in the living room. Laura was curled up on the couch, a book in her lap, but she wasn't reading. She looked up as he entered, and he saw the question in her dark eyes. Is she okay? Laura asked softly. Minho set his keys down and moved to sit beside her, not too close, respecting the distance she'd maintained, but close enough to talk. Physically, yes. She is terrified, but the doctors say she wasn't seriously harmed. He ran a hand through his hair, exhaustion settling into his bones. But Laura, she's lying about something. Someone has her terrified into silence. Laura's brow furrowed with concern. What do you mean? She says she doesn't know who took her or why. But I've worked with Minji for 8 years. I know when she's lying. He leaned back, staring at the ceiling. Someone threatened her. Probably threatened her daughter. She's too scared to tell the truth, even to help us catch whoever did this. That's terrible, Laura whispered. That poor woman. Minho turned to look at his wife, his beautiful, compassionate wife who'd been so hurt by his broken promise, but was still here, still concerned about others. Laura, I need to tell you something. He shifted to face her fully. I don't have proof yet, but I think all of this, Mrs. Jung's kidnapping, Nana showing up exactly when Minji disappeared, the accident that kept me from Ha-neul's party, I think it's all connected. Someone is targeting our family. Laura's eyes widened. What? Who would? I don't know yet, he said, deliberately not mentioning his suspicions about Kim. Not without proof. Laura had developed a friendship with Kim, trusted him. Minho needed concrete evidence before he destroyed that trust. But I'm going to find out. I've put my best people on it. Laura was quiet for a moment, processing this. Then she reached out and took his hand, the first time she'd initiated physical contact since the birthday party disaster. Minho, I need you to promise me something. Anything. Minho responded eagerly. Promise me that whatever you find, however you handle this, you won't become so consumed by it that you forget about us again." Her voice was gentle but firm. "I understand that you need to protect us. I know that's who you are. But Ha-neul and I, we need you present, not just protected. We need you here with us, not lost in investigations and revenge." Minho brought her hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to her knuckles. "I promise," he said solemnly. "What happened on Ha-neul's birthday, Laura, I will regret that for the rest of my life. Seeing you so hurt, knowing I broke my promise to our son. I never want to feel that way again. Whoever is doing this, I'll handle it. But not at the expense of our family. Never again." Laura studied his face, searching for sincerity, and found it. The hard edges of her anger had been softening all week, and now, seeing his genuine remorse and determination, they softened further. "I forgave you," she said quietly. "Days ago, really. I was just too hurt and angry to say it. But I forgive you, Minho. You made a mistake. A terrible one that hurt our son. But I know your heart. I know you love us. And I know you'll do better." "I will," he promised. "I will do better every day." He pulled her closer, and she came willingly, tucking herself against his side the way she used to. The way she had before the distance had grown between them. "I'm sorry too," Laura said softly, "for shutting you out completely. I was hurting and I wanted you to hurt too. That wasn't fair. You had every right to be angry. Maybe, but we're supposed to be partners. I should have at least listened instead of just freezing you out." They sat there in the quiet apartment, holding each other, rebuilding the bridge that had been damaged. "Can we start over?" Minho asked. "To forget what happened and move forward together?" Laura looked up at him, her beautiful dark eyes soft with love and forgiveness. "Yes," she said simply. "Together." He kissed her softly and sweet and full of promise. And when they finally pulled apart, Laura smiled. "Take me on a date," she said. "Like we used to do before Ha-neul, before all the responsibilities. Just you and me, remembering why we fell in love in the first place." Minho smiled back, and it reached his eyes for the first time in days. "Tomorrow night," he promised. "I'll arrange everything. Mrs. Yuchan can watch Ha-neul. You and I will visit the best restaurant in Seoul, and we will spend all the time in the world." "Perfect." Laura giggled like a little kid. The week that followed was like a second honeymoon. Minho honored his promise. He took Laura to Jaein, one of Seoul's most exclusive restaurants, where they had a private room and a tasting menu that lasted 3 hours. They talked and laughed and remembered who they were before parenthood and business empires had consumed their time. They went to an art gallery opening that Laura had mentioned wanting to see. Minho, who normally had no patience for modern art, spent 2 hours walking through exhibits with her, listening to her insights, and watching the way her face lit up when she discussed color theory and composition. They took Ha-neul to Seoul Grand Park for a full day, just the 3 of them. They rode the gondola, visited the zoo, and Minho carried Ha-neul on his shoulders until his back ached. But his son's delighted laughter made every moment worth it. They had a picnic in Olympic Park, sprawled on a blanket while Ha-neul chased butterflies and tried to climb trees that were far too big for him. And one evening, after Ha-neul was asleep and Mrs. Yuchan had retired to her room, Minho and Laura made love with a passion and tenderness that reminded them both why they'd fought so hard to be together in the first place. It was perfect. So perfect that Minho almost forgot about the investigation running in the background. Almost forgot about the threat that had brought them to the brink. But his shadow spy was working. Choi was analyzing footage. The storm was coming. Minho just didn't know it yet. On Thursday evening, Laura stopped at the upscale grocery store near their apartment complex. She'd promised Ha-neul his favorite snacks, and Mrs. Yuchan had given her a list of items needed for the weekend meals. The store was moderately busy, other young professionals stopping after work, elderly residents carefully selecting vegetables, the usual evening crowd. Laura grabbed a basket and began working through her list, humming softly to herself. She was in the produce section, examining avocados for ripeness, when someone tapped her shoulder. Laura turned, expecting a store employee. Instead, she found herself face to face with Kim Park. When she studied him, he looked a bit different. He had a different hairstyle, and he looked more young and handsome. Laura. Kim's face lit up with what appeared to be genuine delight and surprise. Oh my God, Laura Davis. I can't believe it's you. I thought I would never see you again. Laura blinked, confused by his enthusiasm. Kim? Hi. But I don't understand. Why are you acting as though we are meeting for the first time in years? Of course, it's been years since we last met, and I am so glad to see you again. Kim continued, his warm brown eyes sparkling with excitement. You look amazing. Seoul must be treating you well. When did you move here? Are you visiting or living here now? Laura's confusion deepened. She set down the avocado she'd been holding and studied Kim carefully. Kim, what are you talking about? We're neighbors. We've seen each other dozens of times in the past few months. Now it was Kim's turn to look confused. Neighbors? Laura, we're not neighbors. I just moved to Seoul 3 months ago from Busan. This is the first time I've seen you since. He paused, thinking. Since you left Chicago, actually. You just graduated and were talking about teaching English abroad. Was it Korea you chose? Laura stared at him. This made no sense. Kim Park had been living in their building for months. He'd been at the birthday party just last week. He'd given Ha-neul that compass. So why was he acting like this? Or is this his new way of approaching her now? Laura looked at him more carefully. There were slight changes in his body, but she wondered why Kim Park would change how he looked before. His voice also sounded different. You're joking, right? She said slowly. Kim, this isn't funny. We literally live in the same building. Kim's expression shifted to concern. Laura, are you feeling okay? I promise you, we're not neighbors. I don't even know where you live. I'm just here shopping. My apartment is in Gangnam, near the COX Center. This is the first time I've been to this part of Seoul. He pulled out his phone, showing her his address on a map. It was indeed across the city. Laura felt a cold sensation spreading through her chest. This man looked exactly like the neighbor in the same building as her. But he genuinely seemed to have no idea what she was talking about. Have you? She started, then stopped. Do you have a twin brother? Or a relative who looks like you? Kim laughed, but it was uncertain now. Laura, we are childhood friends. You know that I don't have a twin brother or any relatives that look like me. Seriously, are you okay? You look pale. I'm fine, she said automatically, her mind racing. I'm sorry, I think I confused you with someone else. Someone who looks a lot like you. Must be quite the resemblance if you were so sure, Kim said, his concern genuine. Seoul's a big city, lots of people. But hey, it's great to run into you. We should get coffee sometime and catch up properly. I'd love to hear about what you've been up to. Yeah, Laura said distantly. Sure. That would be nice. They exchanged numbers, Kim insisted, saying he didn't want to lose touch with an old friend again, and then Laura made an excuse about needing to get home. She left the grocery store in a daze, her basket still mostly empty. Her mind was spinning. If this Kim Park wasn't their neighbor, then who was the man who'd been living next door to them for months? If you are enjoying the story so far, please support me by hitting that subscribe button, comment where you are watching from. And I have decided to do any request to any of my fans that would make this video reach 20,000 people. Just come to the community section and request what you want. Back to the story. Laura was still processing the strange encounter when she arrived back at their building. She stepped into the lobby, her mind so occupied that she almost didn't notice the activity in the hallway. But then she saw 2 large men in black work clothes. They were carrying boxes inside Kim Park's apartment. The boxes were sealed with tape, labeled in Korean characters she couldn't quite read from the distance she stood. A moving truck was visible through the window, parked in the loading zone. Laura stood frozen, watching as the men efficiently offloaded box after box. Furniture followed. Laura wanted to ask the men offloading 1 or 2 questions. But something held her back. Some instinct that told her these men wouldn't tell her anything, and that drawing attention to her interest might not be wise. Instead, she walked past them with her head down, slipping into her own apartment and closing the door quietly behind her. Inside, she set her mostly empty grocery bag on the counter and pulled out her phone, staring at the new contact she'd just added. Kim Park, Chicago. Her mind was still exploding with so many questions at once. What was going on? Who had been living next door? She should tell Minho. She knew she should. But he'd been so happy this past week, so focused on rebuilding their family. And he'd mentioned an investigation, someone targeting them. What if this was all connected? Laura made a decision. She'd wait until morning. Give herself time to process. Maybe the morning would bring clarity. She didn't know it then, but that decision, waiting until morning, would change everything. Saturday morning arrived with chaos. Laura and Minho were still tangled together in bed, enjoying a rare lazy morning, when music suddenly blasted through the wall from the apartment next door. It was loud. Ridiculously loud. The bass thumped so hard it vibrated their bedroom wall. Some kind of EDM or electronic music, the kind played in nightclubs at 2 a.m., not in residential buildings at 8 a.m. on a Saturday morning. What the hell? Minho groaned, pulling a pillow over his head. Laura sat up, looking at the wall as if she could see through it to the source of the noise. Is that coming from Kim's apartment? Sounds like it. Minho threw off the covers and stood, running a hand through his disheveled hair. His jaw was already tight with irritation. Who plays music this loud this early? Have some consideration for. A door slammed down the hall, Ha-neul's door. Seconds later, their son appeared in the bedroom doorway, his dinosaur pajamas rumpled, his hair sticking up at odd angles, his small face scrunched with confusion. Daddy? What's that noise? It's so loud. Minho's expression darkened. Waking him up was one thing. Waking up his son was another matter entirely. It's okay, buddy, he said, forcing his voice to stay calm. Someone's just being inconsiderate. Daddy's going to go talk to them. I'm coming with you, Laura said, already pulling on her robe. Ha-neul, go to the kitchen. Mrs. Yuchan will make you breakfast, okay? Okay, Mommy. Ha-neul padded off, still looking confused by the noise. Laura and Minho emerged from their bedroom to find the music even louder in the hallway. It was definitely coming from the apartment next door, the apartment that had been Kim's. Minho was already at the door, his expression thunderous. He pressed the doorbell firmly. But no one answered. The music continued to blast. He rang again, holding it longer this time. Still no one answered. With music this loud, they probably can't hear the bell, Laura said, raising her voice to be heard over the noise. Minho knocked hard on the door. 3 sharp, authoritative knocks that demanded attention. Still no response. He knocked again, harder, his patience clearly wearing thin. Forget it, he said finally, turning away. I'll call building management and file a noise complaint. This is ridiculous. Laura, we have so many penthouses, I just wonder why you insisted on us. I am sorry, I just wanted us to live around people, but since it's this way now, we can move back to your villa, at least it's peaceful there. Laura said to Minho with a guilty facial expression. No, instead of us moving out, we will buy this whole neighborhood. This is where your heart chose and our son loves her too. The villa seems too boring to live. Minho said at the top of his voice in order for Laura to hear him. Laura smiled and gave him a hug. Before they had Ha-neul, Laura had insisted that they live in a general penthouse, and also when she wanted to start working, she insisted on working for a stranger to test her abilities. Minho wanted to establish a company for her, but she told him that she needed to test her abilities first. They started back toward their apartment. And then the music cut off abruptly. The sudden silence was almost jarring after the assault of noise. Laura and Minho both turned back toward the door. They heard movement inside the apartment. Footsteps approaching the door. The lock clicked. The door began to open. And then Minho's entire body went rigid. Laura watched in confused alarm as her husband's face transformed through a series of expressions she'd never seen before: shock, disbelief, and then something that looked disturbingly like fear. His dark eyes went wide. His mouth opened slightly. His hand, which had been relaxed at his side, clenched into a fist so tight his knuckles went white. He took an involuntary step backward. "Minho?" Laura said, alarmed. She'd never seen him like this. Her powerful, controlled husband who faced down business rivals and criminal threats without flinching, he looked genuinely shaken. She turned to see who had opened the door. A man stood in the doorway, wearing casual sweatpants and a t-shirt, his hair slightly messy as if he'd just woken up. He looked to be in his early 30s, attractive in a sharp, dangerous way. Korean features, and had a dragon tattoo at the side of his neck. There was something hard about them. Something that made Laura's skin prickle with unease. He wasn't Kim Park. And yet the way Minho was reacting, the absolute shock and fear in his eyes. This man was important. Dangerous, even. The stranger's eyes locked onto Minho's face. For a long moment, neither man spoke. The air between them crackled with tension Laura didn't understand. Then the stranger smiled. It was a cold and calculated smile. The smile of someone who'd been waiting for this exact moment. "Hello, Minho," the stranger said, his voice smooth and pleasant despite the malice Laura could feel radiating from him. It's been a long time. Minho still hadn't spoken in or moved. His face had gone pale beneath his golden skin. Laura looked between them, her heart starting to pound. Who is this man? Why was he in Kim's apartment? And why did Minho look like he'd just seen a ghost? Chapter 2. The Ghost from the Past. The silence in the hallway stretched like a taut wire ready to snap. Minho and the stranger stood frozen. They were locked in a staring contest that seemed to transcend time itself. The air between them crackled with tension so thick Laura could almost taste it. It was metallic and dangerous tension. She watched her husband's face cycle through emotions she'd never seen before. The initial shock had settled into something harder. His dark eyes had taken on that deadly quality she'd only glimpsed a handful of times, the look of a man who'd built an empire in both light and shadow, a man capable of things she preferred not to think about. But beneath the ice, Laura could see something else. Something that scared her more than the anger. It was fear. Minho Kang, the man who faced down rival business empires and criminal organizations without flinching, was afraid of whoever stood in that doorway. Minho? Laura touched his arm gently, trying to break through whatever spell had seized him. Minho, what's? Why are you staring at me like you've seen a ghost, Minho? The stranger's voice cut through the tension like a blade, smooth, pleasant, and laced with something that made Laura's skin crawl. He spoke casually, almost amused, as if he was enjoying Minho's reaction. Minho's expression shifted. The naked shock vanished, replaced by something more controlled. But Laura could see the fury simmering beneath the surface, the tightness in his jaw, the white-knuckled fists at his sides, and the rigid set of his shoulders. "What are you doing here?" Minho's voice was low and controlled, but edged with steel. Each word was carefully measured, as if he was fighting to keep from saying or doing something he'd regret. The stranger leaned against the doorframe with casual arrogance and a cold smile playing at his lips. His eyes, sharp, calculating, and dangerous, never left Minho's face. "Is that any way to welcome your new neighbor?" he asked, his tone mockingly polite. Laura felt Minho stiffen beside her. "New neighbor?" Laura heard herself say, her voice high with confusion. She looked between the two men, trying to understand what was happening. "What are you talking about? This apartment belongs to Kim Park. He's lived here for months." "Not anymore," the stranger said smoothly, his gaze finally shifting to Laura. His eyes traveled over her with an assessment that made her uncomfortable, though his expression remained pleasant. "I'm the current resident of this apartment, Lee Taemin, and I have no idea who this Kim Park person is. The apartment was vacant when I leased it 3 days ago." "That's impossible," Laura said, her mind racing. "Kim was just, we saw moving trucks yesterday. Then your Kim Park must have moved out." Taemin shrugged with infuriating nonchalance. "The building management company said the previous tenant vacated suddenly. I needed a place quickly, and this one was available. Simple as that." "There's nothing simple about any of this," Minho said, his voice dropping even lower. It was the tone he used right before he destroyed someone in a business negotiation. "Or worse. You expect me to believe you just happened to move into the apartment next to mine? That this is all coincidence?" Taemin's smile widened, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Seoul is a big city, Minho. But not that big. Sometimes, paths cross again. Sometimes, the past has a way of catching up." The way he said it, casual, almost friendly, sent ice down Laura's spine. "Who are you?" she demanded, stepping slightly in front of Minho in an unconscious protective gesture. "How do you know my husband?" "Oh, we go way back," Taemin said, his eyes glittering with something dark and satisfied. "Don't we, Minho? Though I suppose you might not recognize me. It's been what, 5 years? People change." "I certainly have." Minho's hand shot out and gripped Laura's arm. Not hard, but urgent. "We're leaving," he said flatly. "Now." He turned on his heel and pulled Laura with him, his grip firm but not painful. Laura stumbled slightly, caught off guard by the sudden movement. "Running away, Minho?" Taemin called after them, his voice carrying down the hallway. "That's not like you." Minho's entire body went rigid. For a terrible moment, Laura thought he might turn back, might do something violent and irrevocable right there in the hallway. But he kept walking, his grip on her arm unwavering, his face set like stone. Behind them, Laura heard Taemin's apartment door close with a soft, final click that somehow sounded more ominous than any slamming would have. Minho released Laura's arm the moment they were inside their apartment, but he didn't stop moving. He headed straight for their bedroom, his movements sharp and agitated. Laura closed the door behind them and followed, her heart pounding. She'd never seen her husband like this shaken, and this rattled. Even when they'd faced down his enemies before, even during the worst of the birthday party disaster, he'd maintained his composure. This was different. By the time she reached the bedroom, Minho was pacing like a caged animal. Back and forth, his hands clenched into fists, his jaw working as if he was grinding his teeth. "Minho." "Not now, Laura." "Minho, please, you're scaring me." "I said not now." His voice cracked like a whip, loud enough to make her flinch. He stopped immediately, seeing her reaction. His face crumpled with regret. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice rough. "God, Laura, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to snap at you. This is just..." He ran both hands through his hair, making it stand on end. "I don't know how to explain this to you. Tell me something, anything that would ease this feeling I have right now." Laura moved closer, keeping her voice gentle but firm. "Who is that man? Why did you react like that when you saw him? How do you know each other?" Minho resumed pacing, his agitation palpable. "It's complicated. I don't care how complicated it is. You looked terrified, Minho. I've never seen you scared of anything, and then this man opens a door and you look like you've seen a ghost. So please, just tell me what's happening." "We need to move," Minho said abruptly, stopping to face her. "Tonight. We need to pack up Ha-neul and move to the villa. Or one of the other penthouses across the city. Somewhere far from here." Laura stared at him. "What?" "Minho, we can't just. This neighborhood isn't safe anymore." His voice was tight with barely controlled panic. "Not with him living next door. We need to leave. Now." "Why?" Laura demanded, her own fear morphing into frustration. "Minho, for the 3rd time, I'm asking you, who is Lee Taemin? What does he want? Why are you so afraid of him?" "I'm not," Minho started, then stopped. His shoulders sagged. "I'm not afraid of him. I'm afraid of what his presence here means. Of what he might do. Of what he might have already done." "Then explain it to me." Laura's voice rose despite her attempts to stay calm. "You keep talking in riddles, but I need you to actually tell me what's going on. We're married, Minho. We're supposed to face things together. But I can't help you if you won't tell me what we're facing." Minho looked at her for a long moment. She could see the war happening behind his eyes, the desire to protect her by keeping her in the dark, warring with the knowledge that she deserved the truth. Finally, he let out a long, shaky breath. "I need time," he said quietly, "to figure out how to explain this. To confirm some things I suspect. To make sure I have all the facts before I tell you something that will change everything." "How much time?" Laura asked, her voice softer now but no less insistent. "A few hours. Maybe a day." He moved to her, taking her hands in his. His palms were cold despite the warmth of the apartment. "Please, Laura. I promise I will tell you everything. Every detail. But right now I need to make some calls. I need to verify some information. And then I'll sit down with you and explain everything." Laura studied his face. She could see the genuine distress there, the plea for understanding. "Okay," she said finally. "But Minho, don't leave me in the dark for long. Whatever this is, it involves both of us. Our whole family. I need to know what we're dealing with." "I know." He brought her hands to his lips, kissing her knuckles. "I know, and I'm sorry. Just give me a little time to sort this out, and then I'll tell you everything. I swear." Laura nodded slowly. She didn't like it. Every instinct screamed that she should push harder, demand answers now. But she also knew her husband. When he got like this, closed off, agitated, needing to process, pushing wouldn't help. "Don't take too long," she said quietly. "Please." "I won't. I promise." Laura turned to leave, but paused at the door. "Minho? Whatever this is, we'll handle it. Together." "Okay." He nodded, but didn't meet her eyes. "Together." She left the room, closing the door softly behind her. The moment the latch clicked, Minho pulled out his phone with shaking hands and called Shadow. The line rang once before the familiar rough voice answered. "Boss. I was just about to call you." "Tell me you have something," Minho said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Please tell me you found proof." "I have more than proof," Shadow said, and Minho could hear the grim satisfaction in his tone. "I have everything. Video surveillance, financial records, communications. Boss, you were right about Kim Park. It's all here." Minho's legs suddenly felt weak. He sat down hard on the edge of the bed. "Send it to me. Everything. Right now. Already on its way to your secure server. But boss, there's more. You need to see this." "Just send it all," Minho interrupted. "I'm looking now." He pulled up his laptop, his fingers flying over the keys as he accessed the encrypted server where Shadow sent sensitive information. Files began downloading immediately: video files, documents, photographs, bank records. Minho opened the first video file. The footage was grainy but clear enough. Timestamp: 2 weeks ago. Location: an underground parking garage in Gangnam. And there, clear as day, was Kim Park's face. Kim Park, who'd been their neighbor. The friendly, helpful Kim who was Laura's childhood friend. The video showed Kim directing 2 other men as they forced a blindfolded woman into a car. Mrs. Jung. Minho's hands clenched into fists as he watched his secretary, the woman who'd worked for him loyally for 8 years, being manhandled into a vehicle. She was clearly terrified and struggling against her captors. And Kim oversaw it all with cold efficiency. More files. Bank records showing payments to the men who'd helped with the kidnapping. Phone records showing calls between Kim and various numbers, including one traced to a burner phone found at the basement where Mrs. Jung had been held. Security footage from the building showing Kim Park entering and leaving at odd hours. Minho felt sick. The resignation letter, Mrs. Jung's kidnapping. All of it was orchestrated by Kim Park. All of it was designed to destroy his family from the inside out. Minho wondered if Kim Park knew him before now, or was he targeting his wife? Did his wife offend him? Minho stood abruptly, grabbing his laptop. He couldn't keep this from Laura anymore. She needed to know. They needed to call the police. They needed to. He stopped mid-thought. What if it's Lee Taemin that orchestrated everything? But if he was the one, would he really be stupid enough to move in next door under his real name if he thought he'd been caught? Which meant it might not be Taemin who is behind it, but Kim Park. Minho strode out of the bedroom, with his laptop in his hand. "Laura," he called. "Laura, I need you to see something." Laura was in the living room, curled up on the couch with a cup of tea she wasn't drinking, staring out at the Seoul skyline without really seeing it. She looked up as Minho entered, and her eyes widened at his expression. "What happened?" she asked, setting down the cup. "I have proof," Minho said, moving to sit beside her. He opened the laptop, pulling up the files. "Laura, I'm so sorry. I should have trusted my instincts earlier." "What's the matter?" Laura asked with confusion. Then she saw the screen. Saw Kim Park's face frozen in a video frame. "What is this?" "Evidence," Minho said grimly. "Proof that Kim Park, the man who's been living next door, your childhood friend, is not who he claimed to be." He pressed play. Laura watched in growing horror as the video showed Kim, her childhood friend, The man she'd trusted with her son, overseeing Mrs. Jung's kidnapping. Her hand flew to her mouth. "Oh my God," she whispered. "There's more," Minho said quietly, clicking through to the other files. Bank records, communications, security footage. All of it painting a damning picture of premeditated criminal activity. "He orchestrated everything," Minho explained as Laura stared at the evidence, her face looking pale. "The resignation letter from Mrs. Jung. The accident that kept me at the hospital. The timing was all planned to keep me away from Ha-neul's birthday. To drive a wedge between us and to weaken our family." "But why?" Laura's voice was barely audible. "Why would he do this?" "I thought, why would Kim do this to me? We grew up together and I have never offended him." "We need to call the police," Laura said immediately, standing up. "Right now. We have evidence of kidnapping, identity theft." "Already on it," Minho said, pulling out his phone. "I'm calling Detective Dong-soo. He handles sensitive cases for people in my position." He dialed, putting the phone on speaker. "Mr. Kong," a professional voice answered. "What can I do for you?" "Detective Dong, I have evidence of a serious crime. Kidnapping and conspiracy. I'm sending you files right now. I need officers dispatched immediately." "I'll send a team to your location." "Not to my location," Minho interrupted. "The suspect has already fled. But I think I know how to find him." He explained quickly about the evidence, about Laura's encounter with Kim at the grocery store, because Laura had told him that she met him at the grocery store the previous day. If he's still in Seoul and doesn't know we're onto him yet, he might not be vigilant, Minho concluded. "My wife has his contact information." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Mr. Kong, if the suspect is still in the city, attempting to contact him could be dangerous." "We should." "He doesn't know we have this evidence," Minho said firmly. "He's been careful and professional. If he thought he was caught, he would have run already. My wife can contact him. Set up a meeting. And your team can be there to arrest him." Another pause. "It's risky," Detective Dong said finally. "But if Mrs. Kang is willing, and if you're certain he doesn't suspect anything." "I'll do it," Laura said immediately. Her voice was steady despite the fear in her eyes. "That man has been in my home. Around my son. He kidnapped an innocent woman. I'll do whatever it takes to help you catch him." "Laura, you don't have to," Minho started. "Yes, I do," she said firmly. "He used my trust. My friendship. My son's affection. I want to help put him behind bars." Detective Dong's voice came through the speaker. "All right. But we do this carefully. Mrs. Kang, you'll be wired. We'll have plainclothes officers throughout the location. And Mr. Kong, you stay back unless absolutely necessary. We can't risk the suspect recognizing you and bolting." "Understood," Minho said, though his expression suggested he didn't like it. "Get me the suspect's contact information. We'll set up the operation immediately." An hour later, Laura sat in the back of an unmarked police van, a small microphone concealed in her necklace, a wire taped carefully beneath her blouse. Detective Dong and his tech specialist made final adjustments while Minho paced outside, practically wearing a hole in the pavement. "Testing, testing," the tech said. "Mrs. Kong, say something for me." "This is Laura," she said, her voice coming through crystal clear in the van speakers. "Perfect." The tech gave her a thumbs up. "Remember, just have a normal conversation. Don't mention the arrest. Don't mention that we're there. Just get him to stay at the location long enough for us to move in." "I understand," Laura said, though her hands were trembling slightly. "You're sure you want to do this?" Detective Dong asked, studying her carefully. "There's no shame in backing out. We can find another way." "I'm sure," Laura said firmly. "Let's do this before I lose my nerve." She pulled out her phone and scrolled to the contact she'd added just yesterday. "Kim Park, Chicago." Laura took a deep breath and dialed. The phone rang once, twice, then thrice. Then a familiar voice answered, warm and friendly, with no hint of the monster beneath. "Laura. Hey. I wasn't expecting to hear from you so soon. What's up?" "Kim," Laura said, and she was proud that her voice only shook slightly. "I need to see you. It's urgent." A pause. "Urgent? Is everything okay?" "Yes, Laura improvised quickly. I have a work situation. A project I'm working on, and I could really use your expertise. You mentioned you work in business consulting, right? Yeah, I do, Kim said, sounding slightly confused. But Laura, I'm sure you have plenty of people in Seoul who could. Please, Laura interrupted. I know it's sudden, but this project is really important, and I value your opinion. Could we meet? Maybe grab coffee and I can explain. Another pause. Laura held her breath. Well, I can't say no to an old friend, Kim said finally, and Laura could hear the smile in his voice. Though I have to ask, are you sure this is about work? Or did you just miss me? He said it teasingly. It made Laura's skin crawl. It's definitely about work, she said, forcing a light laugh. Can you meet me at Cafe Benet near Gangnam Station? Say, in an hour. An hour. Kim sounded surprised. Wow, this really is urgent. Sure, I can be there. Anything for you, Laura. Thank you, Laura said, relief flooding through her. I really appreciate this. No problem. See you soon. The line went dead. Laura looked up at Detective Dong with wide eyes. He's coming. 1 hour. Cafe Benet near Gangnam Station. Detective Dong was already on his radio. All units, location confirmed. Cafe Benet, Gangnam Station. 1 hour. Move into position now. He looked at Laura. You did well. Now comes the hard part. Cafe Benet was a popular chain coffee shop, modern, well-lit, with plenty of witnesses and multiple exits. Detective Dong had chosen it specifically for those reasons. Hard for the suspect to make a scene. Easy to blend in plainclothes officers. Minho had wanted to go inside. Had argued vehemently that he should be there, close enough to protect Laura if anything went wrong. But Detective Dong had been equally firm that Minho's presence would spook the suspect. So now Minho sat in an unmarked car half a block away, watching the entrance through binoculars, every muscle in his body tense. She'll be fine, Detective Dong said from the driver's seat. We have 6 officers inside already, positioned at different tables. The moment he sits down and we confirm his identity, we move in. And if something goes wrong? Minho asked, his voice tight. If he suspects something and grabs her. He won't have time, Detective Dong assured him. Trust me, Mr. Kong. We've done this before. Inside the cafe, Laura sat at a small table near the window, a cup of untouched coffee growing cold in front of her. She'd arrived 15 minutes early, her nerves making it impossible to wait in the van any longer. Around her, the cafe bustled with normal activity. Students studying, business people on laptops, couples chatting over pastries, and scattered among them, 6 plainclothes police officers pretending to be ordinary customers. Laura's phone buzzed. Almost there, Kim. Her heart started pounding. She took a shaky breath, trying to calm herself. You're doing great, Mrs. Kang, Detective Dong's voice murmured in her hidden earpiece. Just stay calm. Act natural. Easy for him to say. The cafe door chimed. Laura looked up. And there he was. The man who'd called himself Kim Park walked in, looking exactly as she remembered from the grocery store, casual, friendly, completely at ease. He wore a comfortable sweater and jeans, his hair styled casually, his smile warm as he spotted her. He looked nothing like a criminal. Nothing like someone who'd kidnapped an innocent woman and orchestrated an elaborate scheme to destroy her family. He looked like her friend. That's what made it so much worse. Laura. He approached with a bright smile, arms open as if for a hug. Laura stood on shaky legs. She couldn't hug him. Couldn't pretend that much. Instead, she held out her hand stiffly. Kim took it with a slightly confused expression, then sat down across from her. Hey, are you okay? He asked, his brow furrowing with apparent concern. You look really pale. Are you feeling all right? I'm fine, Laura said, her voice coming out colder than she'd intended. Kim's confusion deepened. Laura, seriously, what's going on? You sounded weird on the phone, and now you're acting. How could you? The words burst out before Laura could stop them. Kim blinked. How could I what? Stop pretending. Laura's voice rose, drawing attention from nearby tables. Her carefully maintained composure was crumbling. Stop acting like you don't know what I'm talking about. Laura, I genuinely don't. Did you think I wouldn't find out? Laura stood abruptly, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. Did you think pretending you hadn't seen me in years would somehow make me believe you didn't do it? Didn't do what? Kim stood too, his hands raised in a placating gesture. Laura, please, you're not making any sense. What's this really about? Laura's hand flew up before she could think about it. The slap echoed through the suddenly quiet cafe. Kim's head snapped to the side, his hand flying to his reddening cheek. Around them, customers stared, conversation dying. You kidnapped Mrs. Jung, Laura said, her voice shaking with fury and betrayal. You terrorized an innocent woman. You destroyed my son's birthday party. You manipulated me, used my trust, used my son's affection. And for what? What did I ever do to you? I don't. Kim's face had gone pale, his confusion seeming utterly genuine. Laura, I have no idea what you're talking about. Who is Mrs. Jung? What kidnapping? I think there's been some kind of terrible mistake. No mistake, a voice said from behind him. Minho stepped into view, Detective Dong at his side, badge out, other officers closing in from all directions. Kim's eyes widened as he saw the people approaching him. Laura, what's going on? Why are the police here? Kim Park, Detective Dong said formally, moving forward with handcuffs. You're under arrest for kidnapping, conspiracy, and assault. You have the right to remain silent. What? No. There's been a mistake. Kim backed away, his eyes darting between the officers closing in. I haven't kidnapped anyone. I don't know what you're talking about. We have video evidence, Minho said coldly. Financial records. Communications. Everything we need to prove you kidnapped young Minji 2 weeks ago. I don't even know who that is. Kim's voice rose with what sounded like genuine panic. Please, you have to listen to me. I just got to Seoul 3 months ago. I've been working at a consulting firm in Gangnam. I haven't kidnapped anyone. Save it for the station, Detective Dong said, moving behind him with the handcuffs. You have the right to an attorney. Laura, please. Kim looked at her desperately as the officer pulled his arms behind his back. You know me. We grew up together in Chicago. Tell them this is a mistake. But Laura just shook her head, tears streaming down her face. I don't know you at all, she whispered. I don't know who you are. The metal handcuffs clicked into place. Kim Park, you're under arrest. Detective Dong continued the Miranda rights. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Kim's voice rose desperately as the officers began to lead him away. This is wrong. You have the wrong person. Please, somebody listen to me. But nobody was listening. Minho wrapped his arm around Laura's shoulders, pulling her close as she trembled. Around them, cafe patrons whispered and stared, phones out, recording the dramatic arrest. It's over, Minho murmured into her hair. You did it. He's caught. Laura nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. As the police led the handcuffed man toward the door, Laura watched through her tears. And in that moment, she could have sworn she saw something change in his expression. The panic and confusion melted away for just a heartbeat, replaced by something else. Something that looked almost like realization? Then he was gone, hustled out the door and into a waiting police car, still protesting his innocence. Laura sagged against Minho, exhaustion and adrenaline crash hitting her all at once. Is it really over? She whispered. Minho's arms tightened around her. It's over. But even as he said it, even as the police car pulled away with their prisoner securely in the back seat, Minho couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. That this had been too easy. That somehow, somewhere, they'd made a terrible mistake. All right, fam. Quick question to answer and drop comment on. Is the man they arrested really the man who kidnapped Mrs. Jung? Why does he seem so genuinely confused? Could they have arrested the wrong person? Where is the real criminal? What's Lee Taemin's connection to all of this? Drop your theories in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for Chapter 3. Chapter 3. When Everything Falls Apart. The days following Kim Park's arrest should have brought relief. But it didn't. Laura and Minho returned to their apartment that evening, the weight of what they'd done settling over them like a shroud. Kim's desperate protests still echoed in Laura's ears. The genuine confusion in his eyes haunted her dreams. But the evidence had been clear and undeniable. hadn't it? Laura tried to return to normal. She focused on Ha-neul, on her work, on the small routines that made up their daily life. She tried not to think about Kim sitting in a jail cell, tried not to remember the bewilderment on his face as the handcuffs clicked into place. And she tried not to think about Minho's continued silence. He still hadn't explained who Lee Taemin was, why the man terrified him, what history they shared. Every time Laura brought it up, Minho would promise to tell her soon. Just a little more time. Just let him sort some things out first. Laura's patience was wearing thin. But she trusted her husband. They'd weathered so much together, the dangerous early days of their relationship, the threats from Minho's criminal past, the recent crisis with Ha-neul's birthday. They could weather this too, couldn't they? 3 days after the arrest, Laura took Ha-neul to the building's shared garden. It was a beautiful spring morning, the kind that made Seoul feel less like a concrete jungle and more like a place where life could flourish. Ha-neul ran ahead, his small legs pumping with excitement as he chased a butterfly through the carefully maintained flower beds. "Mommy, look. It's blue. The butterfly is blue." His voice was pure joy, untainted by the adult worries that consumed his parents. "I see it, baby," Laura called, smiling despite the knot of anxiety that had taken up permanent residence in her chest. "Don't run too fast, you'll scare it away." "I'm being careful," Ha-neul insisted, slowing to a careful stalk, his small hands outstretched toward the delicate creature. Laura settled onto a bench, watching her son with a mother's vigilant eye. The morning sun was warm on her face. For just a moment, she let herself relax. Let herself pretend everything was normal. "He's beautiful." Laura's body went rigid at the voice. She turned to find Lee Taemin standing a few feet away, his hands in the pockets of his casual pants, his expression pleasant and friendly. He looked nothing like the dangerous predator who'd faced down Minho in the hallway. He looked like any other resident enjoying the morning garden. That's what made him terrifying. "Your son," Taemin clarified, nodding toward Ha-neul. "He's a beautiful child. He has your eyes." Laura stood immediately, her hand instinctively moving toward Ha-neul even though he was still several yards away. "Ha-neul, come here please," she called, her voice steady despite the sudden hammering of her heart. "But mommy, the butterfly." "Now, Ha-neul." Something in her tone made her son stop and turn. He looked between his mother and the stranger, his young face showing confusion but obedience. He trotted back toward Laura. "I should go," Laura said, taking Ha-neul's hand as he reached her. "Come on, baby. Time to head inside." "But we just got here," Ha-neul protested. "We'll come back later." Laura turned to leave, pulling her son gently along. "He told you to avoid me, didn't he?" Laura stopped, her breath catching. She didn't turn around. Taemin's voice continued, casual and knowing. "He told you to stay away from me, right? Laura's hand tightened on Ha-neul's. How did he know that? Had he been listening somehow? Watching them? "He's right to be cautious," Taemin continued. "Your husband knows what I'm capable of. What I want. He's trying to protect you." "Mommy, who's that man?" Ha-neul whispered, pressing close to her leg. "No one, baby," Laura said quietly. "Just a neighbor." She started walking again, faster now. "Aren't you curious?" Laura's steps faltered. "Aren't you curious to hear what your husband has done?" Taemin's voice was closer now. He was following them. "Aren't you curious to know why he's so uncomfortable around me? Why he won't tell you the truth about who I am?" Laura stopped again, her internal war raging. She wanted to know. God, she wanted to know so badly. The not knowing was eating her alive. But Minho had asked for time. He'd promised to explain. She had to trust him. "Leave me alone," Laura said, turning to face Taemin. She kept Ha-neul slightly behind her, her body positioned protectively. "Whatever issues you have with my husband, they're between you and him. Leave me and my son out of it." Taemin studied her for a moment, his expression unreadable. Then he smiled, that cold, calculating smile that never reached his eyes. Taemin glanced down at the boy, and something flickered across his face. Laura couldn't read it. Regret? Sympathy? It was gone too quickly. "One question," Taemin said, looking back at Laura. "Just one. And then I'll leave you alone." "No." Don't you want to know why your perfect husband is so terrified of me? Step away from my wife. The voice cut through the garden like a blade, cold, deadly, and absolutely final. Minho stood at the garden entrance, his entire body radiating fury. His dark eyes blazed with something Laura had never seen before, not just anger, but genuine murderous intent. He crossed the garden in rapid strides, each step purposeful and dangerous. Taemin turned to face him, that infuriating smile widening. Minho. Good morning, neighbor. I was just getting to know your lovely wife and son. Get away from them. Minho's voice was barely above a whisper, but it carried absolute authority. Now. We were just talking. I said get away from them. Minho reached Laura and Ha-neul, positioning himself between them and Taemin. One hand went to Laura's arm, pulling her and Ha-neul back, putting more distance between them and the threat. What do you want? Minho demanded, his eyes never leaving Taemin's face. What the hell do you want from my family? Taemin chuckled, the sound casual and amused. Relax, Minho. I wasn't going to spill your secrets to your wife. Not yet, anyway. His eyes glittered with malice. That's a conversation we should all have together. Preferably when you're ready to be honest with her. You don't know anything about my marriage. Don't I? Taemin tilted his head. I know you're keeping secrets. Big ones. The kind that destroys relationships when they come out. And they always come out, Minho. Daddy? Ha-neul's small voice trembled. Who is this man? Why is he being mean? The question seemed to pierce through Minho's fury. He glanced down at his son, and Laura saw his expression soften for just a moment before hardening again. We're leaving, Minho said, scooping Ha-neul up into his arms. Laura, let's go. Wait. Laura's voice stopped him. She looked between her husband and Taemin, her frustration finally boiling over. Minho, what is going on? I've been patient. I've given you time. But this has gone on long enough. Who is this man? What does he want? What aren't you telling me? Laura, not now. Yes, now. Her voice rose despite her attempts to stay calm. I'm tired of being kept in the dark. I'm tired of feeling like there's some huge secret hanging over us, and I'm the only one who doesn't know what it is. Please. Minho's jaw was tight. Just give me a little more time. I promise I'll explain everything. But not here. Not like this. How much more time? Laura demanded. How much longer do I have to wait for you to trust me with the truth? Oh, this is delicious, Taemin murmured, clearly enjoying the conflict. The perfect marriage cracking under the weight of secrets. Shut up, Minho snapped at him, then turned back to Laura. His voice softened. Please, Laura. Trust me. Just a little longer. Laura stared at her husband, seeing the desperation in his eyes. She wanted to trust him. She did trust him. But this was becoming unbearable. 2 days, she said finally. You have 2 days to tell me everything. After that, I'm done waiting. Minho's relief was palpable. Thank you. I promise. Such a touching moment, Taemin interrupted. Though I wonder if you'll still be so forgiving when you know the truth, Mrs. Kang. What truth? Laura turned to him, her patience finally exhausted. If you have something to say, just say it. Laura, don't, Minho started. But Taemin was already talking, his voice carrying across the garden with terrible clarity. Your husband's past sins are unforgivable. Did you know that? The things he's done, the people he's hurt. Taemin's smile disappeared, replaced by cold fury. I'm going to make him regret every single one. Starting with the worst. What are you talking about? Laura demanded. Taemin, I swear to God, Minho moved forward, still holding Ha-neul but clearly ready to attack. If you cross your boundaries, I will make your life a living hell. Taemin gave him a smirk. Then replied coldly. I have the upper hand now, Minho, because I don't have anything to lose, but you have so much to lose starting from your family. Taemin left the garden with a huge question mark hanging on Laura's head. They walked back to the apartment in silence, the tension between them thick enough to suffocate. Laura wanted to take things easy with Minho, but her patience was really wearing thin and her son was also involved in this whole mess. But Laura didn't know that talking would have to wait. Because by that evening, they'd have much bigger problems than Minho's past sins. The next morning arrived with the suffocating weight of unspoken words and broken trust. Laura had spent most of the night lying awake and staring at the ceiling while Minho did the same beside her. Neither spoke. Neither reached for the other. The space between them felt vast despite only being a foot of mattress. When morning came, they moved through their routine like automatons, getting dressed, drinking coffee they couldn't taste, avoiding eye contact. Today was Kim Park's preliminary hearing. The court date had been set quickly given the clear evidence and the high-profile nature of Minho's connections. They had to go to see this through. Even though Laura's conviction that they'd done the right thing was starting to crack. The Seoul Central District Court was imposing, all modern architecture and cold efficiency. Laura and Minho sat in the gallery, their bodies not quite touching, their hands not quite holding. Kim Park was led into the courtroom in handcuffs and an orange jumpsuit. He looked terrible, exhausted, defeated, nothing like the bright, friendly man Laura remembered from childhood. His eyes found hers across the courtroom, and the betrayal Laura saw there cut deep. The prosecutor presented the evidence methodically. The video footage of Kim, overseeing Mrs. Jung's kidnapping. The financial records. The phone logs. The security footage. It was damning. And yet, Laura couldn't shake the memory of Kim's confusion at the cafe. The genuine shock in his eyes. The panic that seemed too real to be an act. "Mr. Park," the judge said, looking down at the defendant. "You've seen the evidence presented against you. How do you plead?" Kim stood on shaky legs. "Not guilty, Your Honor." A murmur went through the courtroom. "The evidence clearly shows," the prosecutor started. "That's not me." Kim's voice cracked with desperation. "I don't know how, I don't know why, but that's not me in those videos. I've never seen that woman in my life. I wasn't even in Seoul when this supposedly happened. Mr. Park, unless you have evidence to support. I don't know how to prove a negative." Kim turned to look directly at Laura, his eyes pleading. "Laura, you know me. We grew up together. You know I wouldn't do something like this. Please." Laura felt tears pricking her eyes. She wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to believe him. But the evidence. The prosecutor was speaking again, laying out the timeline, the overwhelming proof of guilt. Kim's court-appointed lawyer looked overwhelmed and underprepared, making weak objections that were quickly overruled. It was going to be a short trial. An easy conviction. Laura felt sick. And then the courtroom doors burst open. An older Korean woman rushed in, her traditional hanbok slightly askew, her face flushed and desperate. She carried a large envelope clutched to her chest. "Wait. Please wait," she cried in Korean. "My son is innocent. I have proof." "Order." The judge banged his gavel. "Ma'am, you can't just." "I'm Kim Ji-won," the woman announced, moving down the aisle toward the bench. "I'm the defendant's mother. And I have evidence that will prove my son couldn't have committed these crimes." Kim's face transformed, desperation turning to desperate hope. "Yama?" The prosecutor looked annoyed. "Your Honor, this is highly irregular. My son called me 3 days ago from jail." Kim's mother continued in rapid Korean, which was being translated for the court. "He told me he'd been arrested for crimes he didn't commit. He told me when these crimes supposedly happened. And I checked. I have proof he wasn't even in Seoul." She approached the bench, pulling documents from her envelope with shaking hands. "What kind of proof?" the judge asked, his interest clearly piqued despite the irregularity. "Immigration records," Kim's mother said, spreading papers across the defense table. "My son entered Incheon International Airport on March 23rd. Here's his passport stamp. Here's his immigration card. Here's the receipt from the airport taxi he took to his apartment." The prosecutor moved closer, examining the documents. His confident expression began to falter. "The alleged kidnapping took place on March 15th, Kim's mother continued. "My son was still in America. He was still in Chicago. He didn't arrive in Seoul until 8 days later." The courtroom erupted in whispers. "Your Honor, we'll need time to authenticate these documents," the prosecutor started. "They're real," Kim's mother insisted. "You can verify them with immigration. With the airline. My son was not in Seoul when this crime happened." The judge was examining the documents now, his expression grave. "Mrs. Kim," he said carefully, "are you certain these dates are accurate?" "Yes, Your Honor." Absolutely certain. And you're saying your son has no twin brother? No sibling who could have. Kim Park is my only child, she said firmly. I gave birth to him alone. There is no twin. There is no identical brother. Someone has stolen his identity and used his face, but that man in those videos is not my son. The judge sat back, his expression troubled. Your Honor, this is clearly a desperate attempt, the prosecutor started. A desperate attempt that includes official immigration documents, the judge interrupted. Documents that, if authentic, would provide an airtight alibi? They could be forged. They're not forged. Kim shouted, standing. Your Honor, please. I'm telling the truth. I wasn't in Seoul. I've been trying to tell everyone, but nobody would listen. The judge was quiet for a long moment, studying the documents, then studying Kim's face, then looking at the frozen video still on the courtroom screen. The resemblance is remarkable, he said finally. But if these immigration records are authentic, we request an immediate recess to verify the documents, the prosecutor said quickly. Granted. The judge banged his gavel. This court is in recess pending verification of the defense's evidence. Mr. Park will remain in custody until we reconvene. The court is adjourned. As everyone began filing out, Kim's mother rushed to the defense table, where guards were preparing to take Kim back to holding. Kim Park, she cried, reaching through the barrier to touch her son's face. Oh, my baby, I'm so sorry it took me so long to get here. Yama, Kim's voice broke, tears streaming down his face. Thank you. Thank you for believing me. Always, she said fiercely. You're my son. I'll always believe you. Laura stood frozen in the gallery, watching the reunion, her mind spinning. If the immigration documents were real, if Kim really wasn't in Seoul, then who was in those videos? Laura. She turned to find Minho beside her, his face pale. We need to talk, he said quietly. Something is very wrong. You think? Laura's voice was sharp with stress and confusion. Minho, if Kim wasn't in Seoul, if someone impersonated him, then someone went to elaborate lengths to frame him, Minho finished. Someone who could perfectly mimic his appearance. Someone who knew about your childhood friendship. Someone who... He stopped, his eyes widening with realization and horror. What? Laura demanded. We need to leave, Minho said urgently. Right now. But before they could move, Kim's mother spotted them. Her expression transformed from relief to fury. You, she shouted, pointing at Laura. She switched to English, her accent heavy but her words clear. You did this. My son told me, you're the one who had him arrested. Mrs. Kim, I'm so sorry, Laura started. Sorry. The older woman's voice rose. You have my innocent son put in jail. You don't even investigate. Just arrest him because some video says so. The evidence seemed. You know him. Kim's mother's eyes blazed with rage and hurt. You grew up with him. You know Kim Park. You know he would never hurt anyone. And you don't even question? Don't even ask? Just send the police to arrest him like a criminal. Mrs. Kim, please, I didn't know. You should know. You're supposed to be his friend. The older woman was crying now, fury and relief and exhaustion all mixing together. He trusted you. He came to meet you because he trusted you. And you trap him like an animal. I thought Laura's own tears were falling now. The evidence showed. Evidence can lie. But friends? Friends should know better. Mrs. Kim turned away, dismissing Laura entirely. You stay away from my son. You stay away from my family. We want nothing from you. Mrs. Kim. Nothing, the woman spat. You hear me? Nothing. Guards were ushering Kim back to holding. As he passed Laura, their eyes met. The disappointment and betrayal Laura saw there was worse than any anger could have been. I thought you knew me better than this, Laura, Kim said quietly. I guess I was wrong about a lot of things. Then he was gone, led back through the doors toward the cells. Laura stood there, tears streaming down her face, feeling like the worst person in the world. Laura, we need to go, Minho said urgently, taking her arm. I destroyed an innocent man's life, Laura whispered. I didn't even question it. I just believed. I know. Minho's voice was tight. And we'll find a way to make it right. But right now, we need to leave. Something about all of this feels wrong. Laura let herself be led from the courtroom, her mind a chaotic swirl of guilt and confusion and growing horror. If Kim was innocent, if someone had impersonated him, who? And more importantly, why? The drive home was eerily silent. Laura stared out the window, watching Seoul slide past in a blur of concrete and neon. Beside her, Minho gripped the steering wheel with white-knuckled intensity, his jaw working as if grinding his teeth. Neither spoke. What was there to say? They'd arrested an innocent man, destroyed his reputation, put him through hell. Someone who'd planned this carefully, who'd known about Laura's friendship with the real Kim Park. But who? Laura's mind kept circling back to Kim Park, who had been in their neighborhood. But that didn't make sense. The thought made Laura feel sick. "I'm sorry," Minho said suddenly, his voice rough. Laura turned to look at him. For what? For all of this? For not telling you the truth about Taemin from the beginning? For... He trailed off, his hands tightening on the wheel. For my past catching up with us and destroying everything. Minho. He was right, Minho continued, his voice hollow. Taemin. What he said about me. It's not the whole story, but it's not exactly a lie either. Laura waited, barely breathing. 5 years ago, I was different, Minho said quietly. Before I went fully legitimate. Before I met you. I was a monster. I made decisions based on power and control, not morality. He paused, seeming to gather himself. Taemin, he went by Lee Taemin then too. He was one of my trusted men, working for my organization. He killed my best friend. Laura listened, her heart hammering. I punished him, Minho continued. I made it clear he was out of the organization and out of my protection. That's standard. That's how these things work. Minho's jaw clenched. His mother got sick. Taemin came to me, begged me to help. To use my connections to get her into the best hospitals, to pay for experimental treatments. And you refused. I refused, Minho confirmed, his voice thick with old regret. I told him that being blacklisted meant being cut off completely. That he'd made his choice when he was reckless with my best friend's life. That his mother's illness was unfortunate, but not my problem. Laura felt tears sliding down her cheeks. I didn't actively kill her, Minho said. I didn't prevent hospitals from treating her. That was... Taemin exaggerated that part. But I did refuse to help. I did turn him away when he begged. And yes, she died. And yes, I could have saved her if I'd wanted to. Why didn't you? Laura whispered. Because I was so hurt about my friend's death and I wanted him to feel the same pain, Minho said bluntly. Because I thought teaching him a lesson was more important than an innocent woman's life. Because I was the kind of man who prioritized power and control over basic human compassion. He glanced at her, his eyes full of pain. That's who I was, Laura. That's the man I was before I met you. That's what Taemin wants revenge for. And honestly, I can't even say he's wrong. Laura sat with that for a moment, processing everything. Trying to reconcile the man she loved with the man he was describing. Do you regret it? She asked finally. Every day, Minho said simply. If I could go back and change it, I would. But I can't. All I can do is be better now. Be the man you and Ha-neul deserve. And deal with the consequences when my past comes back to haunt me. They pulled into their building's underground garage. Minho put the car in park but didn't immediately move to get out. I'm going to fix this, he said firmly. Kim Park's situation, Taemin, all of it. I'm going to make it right. How? Laura asked. I don't know yet. But I will. They rode the elevator in continued silence. The tension between them had shifted, not resolved, but acknowledged. They had a long way to go, but at least the truth was starting to come out. At least they were starting to understand what they were really fighting. Laura pulled out her keys as they approached their door, fumbling slightly with exhaustion and emotional overload. The door was surprisingly locked from the outside, which was weird. Minho frowned at the sight of it. Did Mrs. Yuchan go anywhere? Maybe she took Ha-neul out, Laura suggested. To the park or something. Minho pulled out his phone and called Mrs. Yuchan's number. Voicemail. That's odd, he said. She always answers her calls. Try again. He did. Same result. a cold feeling was starting to spread through Laura's chest. Maybe she left a note, she said, trying to stay rational. Under the door or something. Minho crouched down, checking. There's something. He pulled out a folded piece of paper that had been slipped under the door. Laura watched as he unfolded it, his expression shifting from confusion to growing concern. What does it say? She demanded. Minho's hand was trembling slightly as he held the note up. It was written in Mrs. Yuchan's neat handwriting. Mr. and Mrs. Kang. I'm so sorry for the short notice, but I've taken Ha-neul to the park for the afternoon. He was getting restless waiting for you to return from court, and I thought the fresh air would do him good. We'll be back by dinner time. I'll call if we're running late. Mrs. Yuchan. See? Laura said, relief flooding through her. She just took him to the park. It's fine. But Minho's expression was still troubled. She's never done this before. Never taken him anywhere without calling us first to get permission. Maybe she tried to call while we were in court? Laura suggested. Our phones were off. Maybe. But Minho didn't sound convinced. They let themselves into the apartment with their own spare key. Everything looked normal, tidy, and undisturbed. Except for Ha-neul's favorite toy, a small stuffed dinosaur, abandoned on the floor near the door. Ha-neul never went anywhere without that dinosaur. Minho, Laura said slowly, her unease growing. Why would she leave if Ha-neul forgot his toy? I don't know. They checked the apartment thoroughly. Ha-neul's room. Mrs. Yuchan's room. Everything looked normal. Call her again, Laura said, her voice tight. Minho did. Voicemail. Again. It's 6 o'clock, Laura said, checking the time. The note said they'd be back by dinner. That's now. I know. They waited. 15 minutes. 30. An hour. No Mrs. Yuchan. No Ha-neul. No answer when they called. By 7 o'clock, Laura's anxiety had morphed into full panic. Something's wrong, she said, pacing the living room. Something's really wrong. Mrs. Yuchan would never be this late without calling. Never. I know, Minho said, his own worry clear. I'm calling the parks nearby, checking if anyone's seen them. But no one had. By 8 o'clock, Laura was shaking. Minho, where are they? Where's our baby? I don't know, Minho said, his voice strained. He pulled out his phone to call Shadow. He dialed. It rang. And rang then went to voicemail. Minho's face went pale. Minho felt uneasy now. His right-hand man has never picked on a third ring or avoided his call. Then what was going on now? He dialed again. Same result. Who are you calling? Laura asked Minho. I am calling someone who would assist me with all these mess. Minho replied. He didn't want to go into details about Shadow. He's never too busy to answer when I call. Minho was already dialing another number. It rang. And rang, then went to voicemail. What the hell? Minho's voice rose with alarm. Why isn't anyone answering? He tried Shadow again. Voicemail. Choi again. Voicemail. Mrs. Yuchan. Voicemail. Every call went unanswered. Minho, what's happening? Laura's voice was high with panic now. Where's Ha-neul? I don't know. Minho shouted, running his hands through his hair. I don't. His phone rang suddenly, making them both jump. Minho snatched it up. Shadow? But it wasn't Shadow. Minho listened for a moment, his face going from pale to ashen. What is it? Laura demanded. Who is it? Minho lowered the phone slowly. That was my office. Shadow and Choi both called in sick this morning. Both of them. At the same time. What? They've never been sick, Minho said, his voice hollow. Not in all the years they've worked for me. And both of them on the same day. This isn't a coincidence, Laura whispered. No, Minho agreed. It's not. It was 9 o'clock now. Ha-neul had been missing for hours. We need to call the police, Laura said, reaching for her phone. And tell them what? Minho asked, though he didn't stop her. That our nanny took our son to the park and hasn't come back yet? They'll tell us to wait 24 hours before filing a missing persons report. I don't care. Laura's voice cracked. Our baby is missing, Minho. I don't care about procedure. I know. Minho pulled her into his arms. She was shaking. We'll call them. We'll call everyone. We'll find him. But even as he said it, A terrible suspicion was forming in his mind. Shadow and Choi are suddenly unreachable. Mrs. Yuchan not answering. Ha-neul was missing. This wasn't random. This was planned. I need to check something, Minho said suddenly, pulling away from Laura. Stay here. I'll be right back. Where are you going? Just next door. I'll be back in 2 minutes. Before Laura could protest, Minho was out the door, striding down the hallway to Taemin's apartment. He pounded on the door. Taemin, open this door right now. No answer. He pounded again, harder. Taemin. The door opened. Taemin stood there, looking relaxed and amused, a glass of wine in his hand. Minho. What an unexpected visit. To what do I owe? Minho grabbed him by the collar, slamming him against the door frame. Where is he? Where's my son? Taemin's eyebrows rose. Your son? I have no idea what you're. Don't play games with me. Minho's voice was deadly. My son is missing. My security team is suddenly unreachable. And you just happen to live next door. So I'll ask one more time, where is my son? Taemin studied him for a moment, then began to laugh. You think I took your son? He shook his head, still chuckling. Minho, I haven't even made my first move yet. If your family members are already disappearing, maybe you should check your very long list of enemies. See who else you've pissed off over the years. You're lying. Am I? Taemin's expression hardened. You really think I need to hide behind kidnapping children? You really think that's my style? No, Minho. When I come for you, you'll know. It'll be direct. And it'll hurt far more than this. If you've touched a single hair on his head. What? Taemin interrupted, his voice dangerous now. What will you do? What you did to me 5 years ago. What you did when you let my mother die. He leaned forward, his face inches from Minho's. Be very careful about threatening me, Minho. Minho's grip tightened on Taemin's collar. Bring him back. I don't have him. They stared at each other, fury and desperation meeting cold amusement. But I'll tell you this, Taemin continued. If your son really is missing, if someone took him to hurt you, then maybe this is karma. Maybe this is what happens when you destroy families. When you prioritize power over people. Something in Minho snapped. You want to blame me for your mother's death, he growled. Fine. Blame me. Hate me. Come after me directly. But you leave my family out of this. You leave my wife and son alone, or I swear to God, what I did to you in the past will look like mercy compared to what I'll do now. Taemin's expression changed. The amusement disappeared, replaced by cold calculation. Is that a threat? It's a promise. Interesting. Taemin's hand moved so fast Minho barely saw it. The gun appeared from Taemin's pocket. Taemin pointed the gun at Minho's chest. You really shouldn't threaten me, Minho, Taemin said quietly. Not when you're the one who taught me that the best way to hurt someone is to take away what they love most. I dare you to shoot me, Minho challenged unwaveringly. You think I can't shoot you? Look, Minho, killing you would be a very easy punishment for you. If I want to make my move on you, after I'm done, you would wish for death, but death wouldn't come. Taemin's finger moved to the trigger. Taemin, Minho called out. You destroyed my life, Taemin continued, his voice shaking with old rage. You let my mother die alone and in pain. You made me watch her suffer, knowing you could save her with a single phone call. And now you have the audacity to threaten me? To act like you're the victim here. You killed the most important person in my life, Taemin. My own best friend. Minho shouted, his hands still gripping Taemin's collar even with the gun between them. I know I was wrong. I know I made terrible choices. But my son is innocent. Whatever you want to do to me, fine. But leave him out of it. Your son is innocent? Taemin laughed bitterly. My mother was innocent. And you didn't care. So why should I? Minho? Both men froze at the sound of Laura's voice. She stood in the hallway, having followed her husband, her eyes wide as she took in the scene, Minho gripping Taemin, the gun pointed at Minho's chest, the fury and desperation written across both their faces. Laura, go back inside, Minho started. But Laura wasn't listening. She was staring at the gun, at Taemin's face and at her husband's face in horror. And then everything happened at once. Taemin's eyes flickered to Laura. Just for a second. Just long enough to distract him. Minho saw his chance. He grabbed for the gun, trying to wrench it away. They struggled. The gun waved between them, Minho's hands trying to redirect it, Taemin's grip tightening. "Stop!" Laura screamed. "Both of you stop." But neither man was listening. Years of rage and grief and guilt had boiled over, and now it was just two men fighting for dominance, for revenge, and for closure that could never come. The bullet went off. The sound was deafening in the confined hallway. For a split second, everything froze. Minho felt the gun jerk in their combined grip. Felt the recoil. Saw Taemin's eyes go wide with a smirk as he realized the trigger had been pulled. But Minho didn't feel any pain. He looked down at his chest, confused. No blood or any wound. At that same moment, he heard a soft, shocked gasp. Minho turned, his heart stopping, his world ending in that single moment. Laura stood in the hallway, her hand pressed to her right side, just below her ribs. Between her fingers, blood was already starting to seep through her shirt. Her dark eyes found his, wide with shock and confusion and pain. "Minho?" she whispered. Then her legs gave out. "Laura." Minho released Taemin instantly, lunging for his wife as she collapsed. He caught her before she hit the ground, lowering her carefully, his hands shaking. "No, no, no, no," he chanted, pressing his hand over hers, over the wound, trying to stop the bleeding. "Laura, stay with me. You're okay. You're going to be okay." "It hurts," she whispered, her face going pale. "I know, baby, I know. Just stay awake. Keep your eyes on me." Behind him, Taemin stood, the gun still in his hand. His face showed no emotion. "How does it feel, Minho?" he asked Minho with a satisfied smile. "Get away from her." Minho roared, cradling Laura against his chest. "You've done enough." Taemin took a step forward, his smile widened like a psychopath. "I said get away. Minho, I swear, I didn't mean to shoot her, it was a mistake. My plan was to make you shoot your own wife with your own hands, but since it has come to this, I have no choice. You are a monster." Minho's vision was tunneling, his entire world reduced to Laura's pale face, the blood seeping between his fingers, the way her breathing was becoming shallow and rapid. He needed to call an ambulance. "Look who's calling me a monster. If I am a monster, then back then, you were a demon lord, a heartless demon lord. It's unfortunate to me that you weren't the one that ended your wife's life with your own hands, because that would have been the most appropriate punishment to give to a heartless monster like you." Minho ignored Taemin's blabbing and reached for his phone with bloody hands, trying to dial, but his fingers were shaking too badly. "Let me." Taemin started forward again. "Don't you dare." Minho snarled. "Haven't you done enough? Haven't you destroyed enough?" "I haven't destroyed anything, Minho." Taemin's voice cracked. Taemin stood there for another moment, his face showing a genuine smile as he stared at Minho. Then he raised the gun again. "What are you?" Minho started. But Taemin didn't point it at Laura. He pointed it at Minho. "I'm sorry," Taemin said quietly. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry. But this has to end." "Taemin, don't." The gun came down hard. Minho felt the impact against his chest, felt the explosion of pain, felt his vision going dark. The last thing he saw before unconsciousness claimed him was Laura's face, her eyes closing, and her hand falling away from her wound. The last thing he heard was Taemin's voice, distant and wavering. "In your next world, you will live a decent life so that the past won't come back haunting you." But he'll never let this go. Alright fam, part 3 has ended, and I know that you must be disappointed at how it ended, but it's not my fault. Now, if you want a happy ending, I just want this video to reach more people and at least we should get about 3K subscribers, but if not, I am sorry, but this would be the end of the kiss that changed everything, so sad, right? So fam, if you really want a happy ending, make sure that this video reach more people and also comment your thoughts so far about the story. Quick questions to contemplate on. Laura has been shot and is bleeding. Minho was also shot. Ha-neul is missing. Shadow and Choi are unreachable. Mrs. Yuchan has vanished. Taemin is the last person with them. Has he really won? Who really took Ha-neul and Mrs. Yuchan? Will Laura and Minho survive? Drop your theories in the comments. What do you think happens next? Like and subscribe for the season finale. This story just got dark. Remember, our goal is 3K subscribers, or there won't be any season finale on this story. Till then, fam.